Hey guys, this is Arnie from Scotsman Guide, and today we are talking to Anita Kramer. She's a Senior Vice President of the Urban Land Institute Center for Capital Markets and Real Estate. Now, did I get all of that right, Anita?
Yeah, you got it right.
Awesome. Now, today we're talking about ULI's emerging trends in real estate outlook for 2021 and its implications for our loan origination community. Anita, what would you say is the biggest takeaway from the report?
I would say this year more than ever are the interconnectedness of the trends of the emerging trends that we're seeing. I would have to say that a lot of it is connected to the work from home, new experiment, and from there it goes to the Great American Move, which in part is a demographic play of people, and it was already happening. So the older millennials moving out of the city, people moving to lower cost markets, smaller markets, and to the Southeast. But that is even further accentuated by the ability to work from home. So that plays into something that was there and have pushed it along quite a bit. So the people that would have wanted to eventually buy, but maybe buy in a close-in suburb from a city, and maybe were hesitating and saving, but now because they didn't want to commute every day. Now they don't have to necessarily commute every day, so they can go further out, or they can go further afield to a smaller market or different climate. So that kind of gets back, it circles back a bit, back to the work from home as to what is actually going to be happening. A bit of a surprise is the range of thinking on that. And as much as there is a sense that it's changing, there's an awareness that, a growing awareness that certainly not every job is an office job that can do that. So that's something else that brings up kind of the bifurcation of the recovery that's happening. So lower wage jobs are not coming back as fast, and that figures into the multifamily and into the affordable housing crisis that we already had.
Yeah, at this point, we've heard a lot about the so called migration of residents from urban areas out into areas of lower density. Now, what I'm interested in finding out is how much of that is real, is supported by your data, and how much of it is maybe just inflated a little bit.
Yeah. It's hard to know. There's no kind of data source exactly. I know that in the height of it, there was analysis of the number of forwarding, the Postal Service forwarding records out of New York. So there was but those people who left were primarily fairly wealthy, had homes, but there were people who were looking to rent in Connecticut or were going back, if they were younger, going back home. So it's again, the question is how much of that's going to stick, and what does it take to make a difference? So 10% of anything is huge. You will see. So is it going to be 10% of what would have been there for now, and then grow back up because of just natural growth? It could be just a few percent. That's just remains to be seen. But I would say the strongest anecdotal information now is the home sales in all these other markets, and the U-Haul data. I don't know if you saw that app in terms of where people are going, and then the home sales. I mean, that's an indication that something is happening. If people are buying, that's pretty permanent, even if they sell in a few years. I mean, that's not, we'll just wait for a few months and rent. So that's something else that's going to come into play. People have made some fairly firm decisions.
Gotcha. Now let's switch gears a little bit. We've talked about the people who are working from home, but now let's talk about the people who are sticking with non-remote work. For our commercial folks, is there any concrete indication yet of what the new normal is going to be in terms of what's attractive to people still seeking some space out there?
So this is, I mean, I will have to say this is the piece in terms of how it plays out that is less clear than any other piece, because so you can only talk about like what are the decision factors. So a company can decide, okay, we're going to do like a 2-day, 3-day, 3-day in. We're gonna have more flexibility. People are gonna have 2 days out. So then you have to, then they'll have to say, okay, does everybody have the same 3 days, or does it, or is it mix and match so everybody can kind of see each other at different times? So that would dictate how many people are in at any one time. And that could range from everybody's in at one time. You need more space. If you had that open condensed office, that would argue for more space, right? Then, but what if you mix and match people, then you have possibly a lower number at any one time. But then more space. So when people are together, so it's like a numbers game back and forth as to the total amount of space. Or then you have the possibility of there are certain jobs in a company that are always remote and certain jobs that are in. There's so many variables. That's the one thing we've learned, is that different jobs do better or worse remotely. So I would say for my job, personally, I do far better outside the office. We had an open office. I could not have done emerging trends this year if I wasn't at home, because total focus. It was extra work this year because of the pandemic. So there's so many things for companies to sort out. So what's happening right now is because people have long-term leases, you're not seeing a lot of movement really quickly. There are companies that you hear like REI. I don't know if you heard that one. So they built their new headquarters, and I think it's in Bellevue, about to move in and just said, oh, no, we're not moving in. They just sold it, I think, to some other big tech, some other tech company. I was like, at first it was like, who's going to buy that? All sorts of fancy climbing equipment in the office and things like that, but they did. So they're going spoke and hub, so a smaller and more far-flung, with what they call leaning into remote. There's so many different variations. On the other hand, Amazon just leased 800,000 square feet in Manhattan. And Microsoft is somewhere in between. They just announced that. So you hear the headlines, but there's obviously hundreds of thousands of smaller businesses that have to make their own decision.